Deutsche Welle and multilinguality, as Deutsche Welle is an excellent example why we need this multilinguality, why we need so many languages, because we have 32 listed here, and we've just recently added 2, and I'm sure more are coming. So we definitely need the tools to help us deal with more languages. Today, we all know that we have these technologies, we have these tools. For instance, as we will see later, we have the media monitoring tool, Monitio. Most of you know PlainX. We have this tool for subtitling and underlying technologies and engines. If these are the overall platforms, and then of course all of you use Google Translate, and maybe you've used Trint, we have Azure, so we know we're familiar with all these technologies. This has not been the case before, as the people who've worked in Deutsche Welle and similar organizations a lot. It was a long way. We're not there yet, but at least we have some tools. We would have liked to go very fast on a racehorse. Sometimes we had to slow down and use slow motion to get there. Machines were slow. Technologies were not yet what we needed it to be. But now we have reached at least maturity that we know we can use it in production. A little bit of history on how we got how Deutsche Welle got into the EU projects. We started actually 24 years ago. The first project we had was Opal, and that was started back in Brussels, and it was about adding metadata for exchange of video material, at the time still Betamax videos. So this is where we said, okay, we need to exchange it. How do we create the metadata to make this, to digitize this? That was the start of it for Deutsche Welle, and we've had many, many projects to get to real AI that we have now. Then the first, if we talk about HLT, the first one we had was 12 years ago, and that was Cosine. And that used language technologies, or actually machine translation, to translate the Today in History program. And that was the start of the HLT team, where we do all these projects now. We've had many other HLT projects, and we have a few listed back there. So Access was a very interesting one. It actually combined the language technologies with other technologies such as face recognition and object recognition. So it was a very, very powerful search tool. It wasn't ready at the time to be implemented. It was too much of a prototype, but it really was a very, very powerful tool, and we definitely want to start doing that, or start working, continuing to work on that. Then we have Newsbridge. Some of you are familiar with that. That was basically the predecessor of the current PlainX. Sama is the predecessor of the current Monitio platform for media monitoring. We just finished the Gourmet project, which was about developing machine translation for low-resource languages, and we'll get back to that. And then, for instance, UMC was all about multilingual searching, in particular also for social media. Then the human language technologies, all this brought us to the point where we are now, where we are familiar with the language technologies, and many think about, okay, well, language technologies is automated translation. It is much, much more than that. It's also, obviously, as we know, for those that are familiar with PlainX, transcription and voiceover and subtitling, but it's also about metadata, creating metadata, creating keywords, as we will see in the Monizio presentation later, about named entities. How do you get these correct in transcription? How do you translate them correctly? Names of organizations and persons and places, for instance. And then overall data analysis. How can you search, make a large multilingual data set searchable regardless of the language that you're familiar with? Then with all these technologies, we looked at what was important for Deutsche Welle in the first place, but for the media in general as well. And we decided that we have three main areas we want to work in. The first one is the topical overview, and that has to do with multilingual monitoring. So can we get an idea of what data set and what filters bring out regardless of the language, the source language that we have. So we have 32 languages in Deutsche Welle. Can we search it even if we don't know Russian and Hindi and Bengali and Amharic? So can we do a global search on that, filter it the way we want it? The second one is audiovisual adaptation. And that is where PlayNext comes in. That's adapting it for different languages in a very smooth way. And then we have the metadata enrichment. That is, how can we use the analysis in the tools that we have available to enrich the metadata that we have. And for instance, for the archive, that is a very important area. So let's have a look at Selma. So that was overall, what do we do in terms of language technologies? Now let's apply this to our current project, Selma. So Selma is about user interfaces and scenarios, how to make sure that these really match what our users need. That's one of the main goals that we have. Then we also want to make sure that we can update the language models that are being developed, because afterwards it's going to be out of date very soon. So machine learning is very important here. Then we also want to focus on low resource languages, because for the major languages such as English and French and Spanish, we have very good tools. But we will also have them for Hausa and Amharic and very smaller languages. There are tools, but maybe we need to improve them. Some transcriptions, for instance, they have a transcription for that language, but there's no punctuation. Without punctuation, we can't do anything. And then we want to make sure that it becomes available as open source, so the research community and a wider user base can make use of that. So what's next? We have a lot of goals and we want to do everything. We have to see what is feasible. Here are a few, not necessarily within the Selma project as such, but overall, we would like to work towards accessibility. One example is Leichte simplified language. We know subtitling, we do this in different languages. Can we also subtitle in a simplified language for people that are not able to read regular subtitles? Similar to that, audio descriptions, we have subtitles for accessibility. Can we add audio descriptions such as door slamming and or laughing or car starting, so that it adds an extra dimension? That would be added to the subtitles that we are producing. Then the other picture you see there is a part of a proposal that we submitted, and it was actually considered very good, but the budget was missing from the EU, so in principle it would have been approved, and that is to add sign language to Deutsche Welle programs. At a very basic level, but that would be lovely. Then you translate the speech into the signs, and then you have it shown by avatars. That is definitely something we'd love to try out. So we're getting there. We want to get more and more AI into it, but there's still a lot of work. And then, of course, overall metadata that we would like to be able to produce on the fly so that we can increase and enhance our data. So that is a basic introduction into what we aim to do as a broadcaster and a media company. And we are not looking only at Deutsche Welle. We see ourselves as as being representative for the broadcasting and media industry, because we're doing so many languages and we have the aims that we, as many others, many other broadcasters do. So we came a long way. We've reached a stage where we think it is definitely mature to use it, and we will keep on working on enhancing it more and more. Thank you.
Thanks much. So, and thank you very much, Peggy, for showing a bit also of history of where we come from in NLP and AI. And maybe also people here, we take the chance, we have a couple of minutes to get a question if you have one. So feel free to ask. Yeah. May I ask you to speak through the microphone so that also the people in the stream get to know?
Hello, I'm Mahesh Jha, working with Hindi department. We have been connected with this project right from the beginning, not 12 years, but at least since 5 years. And trying to get it. It is still not part of our workflow fully because we are a very small team and at times it takes time. Thank you very much, Peggy, for introducing this tool to us in the department and also for the cooperation we had in past years and is still having. My question is, although you have been cooperating with Indian companies also on Hindi, meanwhile, I can see there Netflix or Google is doing a lot in India. Do you have contact with them? What is happening in Hindi, or you are planning to have that contact? Because one thing I have known now that they have also tools of checking the quality of the translation. Whether you intend to introduce that also here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahesh. Not particularly with the companies in India or similar countries, situations. What we are doing is we have our benchmarking. So the basis is that we do benchmarking, and we will show that later this afternoon. So we do benchmarking at a technical level where we say, okay, we compare it to a reference model that we have, and then we have user evaluation, and you've participated in that as well. Thank you very much. We'll renew it, so we'll come back to you and your team, because we have improvements, and as you've seen, we've seen improvements over time. But you definitely have a point in that very often it is at the site on site there that we could see certain options that we don't have here. Of course, we have, if you're talking about Google, we have Google, and we use the tools that are made available to us through Google Translate and Google Transcription, and then we compare it to what Azure does and what any other tools that we have that we have available, and we look at what is best, and we have the editors look at it. There are, and this is where we need the cooperation of the departments themselves to see if we can get hold of certain tools that are available there that might be better than what we have. Our experience overall is sometimes they're better, but it's very hard to compete with the bigger translation and transcription engines, because like Google has so many so many people working on these tools that they can update it faster than some local tools. But with the Google staff on site, no, but that is definitely something we would like to see if we can do it. The most important thing for us as a broadcaster or a media producer and using this in production is make sure we have the best tool available and that we know which is the best tool if you have several available. And that is going to be an ongoing effort. It's not like, okay, we've done this, because we've seen there are changes over time. And sometimes it's one is better, and then a year later, the other one is better. We have to keep on doing that. But it's not like, okay, we've done that 2 years ago, so we know what it is. It is changing constantly. And this is something definitely we have to work with the editorial department. So thank you.